Yo, today we're gonna watch one of SETTY and Kami's games from the FNCS Invitationals. I'm actually gonna show you one of the god strategies that they use to win the FNCS Invitational. So landing at Kami split, I think this is like something that helps him a lot. Is at Kami split, it's like a good position for Surge. Like this is pretty high up, and you can build a good base and be pretty high up for Surge. And one thing that's really good about that is since it's like middle zone, right? It's really likely that it's gonna pull zone and then be in a good position to set on up for Surge. What's good about that is they have a good position to go and get Surge from. That's gonna be uncontested for them every time because they literally land on a spot, right? They're kind of guaranteed a good spot for Surge, like a good amount of the games. And then when zone does pull far, they're already central in the map, and they've also got a balloon so they can rotate really quickly and easily. So the three things that are really good about this drop is that it's got the balloon rotation, it's got a high spot for Surge, and it's middle map. So that's really good for lobbies with Surge. And you can also notice now him building up on this good position in zones like this. That's obviously going to be good because they know zone's probably going to pull back. Down here just because it's really predictable. So if zone pulls back here, they know that the congested side, which will be like that, will then have to rotate like that way towards zone. And them being there, obviously they can see all those people rotating because they're next to or even in it, so they'll get Surge that way. But I'm pretty sure this one, it actually doesn't pull that way, which is really rare. And also another interesting thing I noticed is that they always have at least one person set up, like from like 3 minutes 20 first move and closing. They always have at least one person up here shooting and getting Surge, and the other person might just be farming and stuff if they need to. And they actually seem to chuck like a lot of spare heals up here, which is interesting because they have so much loot here. Like they have the vault as well, and they have a lot of loot over here. So I think what they do as well for Surge is they get all the spare heals and they chuck them up there. And then what they can do with that is they can just trade tags with people. And then yeah, the next zone that pulls is like pretty rare. They probably weren't expecting it. But as you can still see here, they're positioned here and they'll know there'll be people rotating in towards them, which is like in this congested side still, because these people have to still rotate to zone. So they probably know they're still gonna like be able to hold people, so they'll probably stay here because it's also high up positioning. There's not a really better position they could get that will give them Surge. If they're really high up positioning on the good point on the map, they definitely easily get the Surge. And now I assume since there's so many people in zone, this is like a really good opportunity to get Surge, so they wouldn't want to rotate instantly and let go of that opportunity because they might not get that later. And I guess they might use the balloon, which is like another reason they just get to stay as long as possible, because it doesn't matter that they go late because they can just use the balloon and get in. So they can just stay here and get Surge as long as possible and then balloon away. I've seen a lot as well, sometimes in the other games, they'll like stay in zone as long as possible, getting tags on people ahead of them that are rotating, just because they can wait that long until they have to go, because they can just use a balloon or something anyway. And now since they're like 450 above, that sets themselves up in a really good position to not have to sacrifice much in the future for like more Surge. They can just kind of play in-game now. It's interesting in other games as well, I saw them tank zone so much. I think it's mostly down to like Surge, because they tank a lot for Surge, like I said before. Like they just wait ages and tank in zone and look ahead for Surge. No one must even expect this though, like if they come in this late, like I don't think anyone's gonna expect someone doing that. And then you didn't see because of the lag, but they literally just land right in zone. And boom, they've got Surge with 140 builds each in 4th zone, that's insane. And then the next zone pulls all over here, which I assume could actually be a pretty decently easy rotate, because they could possibly just drop down here and use this cliff line to block off like everyone up there and get a decently easy rotate. They do actually go down to do this position that I'm talking about, but they do get beams, so they gotta stop. And I guess here, they go up because they do hear someone below them, so obviously they shouldn't go down there. And now they're realizing that they can't drop down there, so they can't go right now. But then they realize they could just go up and get him. But the only thing about this is that they can't get like pretty deep, because if they drop down here earlier and didn't get cracked, they could probably keep going and be like here, which is way better because it's deeper. We've talked about before. And our first moving pulls max over this way, And at this point, I assume they'd be looking to use a pad, but then they hear a pad, because they have one pad, they probably want to save that for later. And they also have, what? They have 8 chugs and a slurpfish, so they know they can tank for this, so it's probably going to be worth it to save a bunch of mats. So yep, this is how they rotate the first zone. And he lands kind of like on the right, and you'll notice how he doesn't like land low gun or anything. He actually lands on this and goes up another layer. And then I assume they might use another pad here, because this is going to be really good, because obviously there's probably not going to be another time in the in-game where they can save this much mats in one usage of pad, because it's like first moving, that's the most distance. And also they know they're not in a good layer, so they can also pad all the way into zone and then make a box, save so many mats, and then they can also land on a really high layer in case it pulls like over this hill maybe. Boom, they've only used pads to rotate the first moving, which saves heaps of mats, because first moving is the most mat intensive if you don't have any rotation. So if you can like delete first or even second moving zone as well, just using rotation, you'll like be really set up for in-game, because you'll have heaps of mats in the later zones. Obviously you need to think of your pads as like mat savers, right? And then you need to use the mobility and the times where you're going to save the most mats, like where the investment is the best. And you can notice here now they're playing a really high layer. It's just like we've talked about for so long, like you should just be playing highish layers until like the end of the end game, and then like trying to go for low gun or high gun. I think at this point though, their focus isn't really low guns or anything, because of the mats. They literally have 7 builds combined. At this point they're probably just gonna like sit together right on each other and hold their shotguns out and go and like wait till the very last second of zone and then just go for a kill together, I guess. Which is what they try to do here, but they die. I feel like that game, they didn't really get to do much in their in-game. They didn't really get past that point where they get like a good refresh and then they get to like top 3, top 2, top 1. I feel like that game was mostly the mat conservation was like really good. Like so good that they didn't really need to get a kill and they still got 5th place from it, which is all from that like the really good early and mid game where they got all their surge and they had like almost cat mats just flying in and then landing a 4th zone. They had like 140 builds each, which is crazy. And then also making sure they used their pads on the first moving, so they basically deleted any tarping needed in the first moving. I think their mat conservation and like mid game plan is like really good.